America is currently in the grip of snowballing student protests against the war in Gaza, with many of the Ivy League universities at the center of all the action. Massive protests against Israel's war in the Gaza Strip have convulsed multiple leading universities across the United States. The protests have spread from Columbia University to Yale to New York University and many others as officials scramble to defuse the charged atmosphere with emotions running high. On Monday night, the police moved to break up a protest at New York University and made a number of arrests. Dozens of students were arrested at Yale earlier in the day, while Columbia cancelled in-person classes in view of the tensions on campus. That's not all. Similar encampments have sprung up at Berkeley, MIT and other top colleges across the country. And the issue is becoming quite complicated and delicate for the university authorities as well as the Biden administration, which has earned the wrath of many protesters across the country over its unqualified support to Israel's war. Demonstrations and heated debates about the Israel-Hamas war and free speech have rocked US campuses since the Hamas attack on Israel on the 7th of October, which resulted in Israel launching its most intense war ever in Gaza. And the protests have proven to be as polarizing as the war itself. Students in the US on both sides of the political divide say there has been a rise in both anti-Semitic and Islamophobic incidents since the 7th of October. When asked about the campus protests on Monday, President Joe Biden said he condemned both the anti-Semitic protests and those who don't understand what's going on with the Palestinians. The campus protest movement was thrust into the spotlight last week after New York City police were called out to Columbia University's campus in the city and they arrested more than 100 demonstrators. In a statement on Monday, Columbia announced that all classes would be held virtually, with Columbia President Dr. Minouche Shafik citing incidents of intimidating and harassing behavior. Dr. Shafik said tensions on campus had been exploited and amplified by individuals who are not affiliated with Columbia but who have come to campus to pursue their own agendas. At New York University, protesters set up tents across from the Stern School of Business, as was the case in some of the other universities. The NYU protesters are calling on the school to disclose and divest its finances and endowments from weapons manufacturers and companies with an interest in the Israeli occupation, as they put it. As night fell on Monday, the police began arresting protesters there. Hours before, nearly 50 protesters were arrested at Yale University in New Haven, Connecticut, where authorities said hundreds of people had gathered, many of them refusing to leave. Protest encampments have also been established at the University of California at Berkeley, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the University of Michigan, Emerson College and Tufts. Authorities at New York University said they had received reports of intimidating chants and several anti-Semitic incidents. The issue has marred the protests more widely. Recent videos posted online appear to show some protesters near Columbia expressing support for the Hamas attack on Israel. Democratic Congresswoman Kathy Manning, who toured Columbia on Monday, said she had seen protesters there calling for Israel's destruction. And the Hasidic group Chabad at Columbia University said Jewish students had been screamed at and subjected to harmful rhetoric. A rabbi affiliated with the university reportedly sent a message to 300 Jewish Columbia students, warning them to avoid campus until the situation dramatically improves. Members of the protest groups who have given public statements have denied anti-Semitism, arguing that their criticism is reserved for the Israeli state and its supporters and not for the Jewish people at large. The university and Dr. Shafik, who just last week traveled to Capitol Hill to testify before a congressional committee on the university's efforts to tackle anti-Semitism, are being urged to resolve the situation. A group of federal lawmakers led by New York Republican Representative Elise Stefanik on Monday signed a letter asking for the Columbia president to step down for what Stefanik said was a failure to put an end to the mob of students and agitators calling for acts of terrorism against Jewish students. The protests also prompted Robert Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriot NFL team and a prominent Columbia alumnus, to warn that he would stop supporting the university until corrective action is taken. Now, the attack on southern Israel on the 7th of October saw about 1,200 Israelis and foreigners, mostly civilians, killed and more than 250 others taken back to Gaza as hostages, according to the Israeli figures. Israel responded by launching its most intense ever war in Gaza with the aim of destroying Hamas and freeing the hostages. More than 34,000 Palestinians in Gaza, most of them women and children, have been killed in the conflict in the territories, according to the territory's Hamas-run health ministry. For months now, the war has deeply divided the world. College campuses across the US too have been rocked by demonstrations. There have also been wider demonstrations in the United States over the events in the Middle East. Pro-Palestinian protesters recently blocked major roads across the country, even restricting access to airports as well as the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco and Brooklyn Bridge in New York. The White House issued a statement on Sunday saying, while every American has the right to peaceful protest, calls for violence and physical intimidation targeting Jewish students and the Jewish community are blatantly anti-Semitic, unconscionable and dangerous, and echoing the rhetoric of terrorist organizations, especially in the wake of the worst massacre committed against the Jewish people since the Holocaust, is despicable. President Biden has denounced blatant anti-Semitism, as he put it, on college campuses, saying, even in recent days, we've seen harassment and calls for violence against Jews. This blatant anti-Semitism is reprehensible and dangerous, and it has absolutely no place on college campuses or anywhere in our country. New York Mayor Eric Adams said he was horrified and disgusted with the anti-Semitism being spewed at and around the Columbia University campus. The mayor said New York police would arrest anyone found to be breaking the law. The clearing of the protest encampment last week was described as an extraordinary step by Columbia University President Dr. Shafiq, who said it was necessary to provide a safe environment. Among the participants in the protest was the daughter of Minnesota politician Ilhan Omar, who has been suspended from her college. Dr. Shafiq had earlier faced members of the US Congress, as we mentioned, to defend Columbia's efforts to tackle anti-Semitism. There have also been calls for her resignation. The Columbia Spectator, a student newspaper, reported that the swoop by police officers on the campus marked the first time mass arrests had been made on campus since Vietnam War protests in 1968. On social media platform X, Ilhan Omar's daughter, 21-year-old Isra Hirsi, said she had been suspended from Bernard College for standing in solidarity with Palestinians facing a genocide. She said she had never previously been reprimanded or disciplined in the 3 years that she had been a student at the private women's college, which was next to and affiliated with Columbia. Her mother, Ilhan Omar, is amongst the most vocal critics of Israel on Capitol Hill. Bernard Student Government Association said in a statement that the suspensions were illegitimate and a violation of the sanctity of the academic institution and its purpose to facilitate open dialogue. Meanwhile, the University of Southern California recently cancelled a student's graduation speech amid a backlash over her social media activity on Israel. The university cited substantial risks to campus security in the decision to hold the Muslim students' address. But Asna Tabassum said she was a target of a campaign of hate meant to silence her voice. Tabassum is the 2024 valedictorian, a student picked out for high academic scores and involvement in campus life. The decision to cancel her speech came after claims that her social media activity was anti-Semitic. In a statement on Monday, Tabassum said she was shocked and profoundly disappointed by the university's decision. She said, by cancelling my speech, the university is only caving to fear and rewarding hatred. The college has said this decision has nothing to do with freedom of speech. There is no free speech entitlement to speak at a commencement. The issue here is how best to maintain campus security and safety. Demonstrators against the war in Gaza continue to take place across the United States and even at events attended by US President Biden, with some critics of the president even booing him and shouting "Genocide Joe" for his support to Israel's war in Gaza. The anger among the Arab Americans is quite widespread, and many Democrats too have expressed their growing discomfort over Biden's Gaza policy with the US presidential elections now just months away. The question we're asking on Global Lens tonight is this: have the Gaza war and the mounting death toll polarized American university campuses as much as they've polarized American society and indeed the world? How do you draw a line between protests against what many believe is an unjust war that has killed thousands of people and an agitation that threatens to degenerate into a hate campaign targeted at a particular community? Also, is it fair to label every protest that calls for an end to the Gaza war and the killings and suffering of innocent civilians in the enclave as anti-Semitism?